China is easing its one-child policy after decades of having it in place. And joining us now on the line from Abu Dhabi to discuss this impact is our China on China, Dr. Martin Davies from Frontier Advisory. Martin, I know you're there for the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Councils. We'll touch on that in just a moment. But it's big news coming out of China, and already market commentators like Sasha Nariskin was saying earlier, maybe he should be buying some shares in Aspen because it'll benefit from this. It seems premature, but it is a big change on the one child.
Yes, good day, Alec. Look, I think it's symbolically important, politically important, but you know, in reality, it's the net impact will be negligible, I would argue. I mean, the one-child policy in China has been in place since 1980. So in theory, if you are, 33 and below, a majority of cases, you're going to be, we won't have any siblings. But already, and for many years now, if you are of that generation, 33 and below, you're allowed to have 2 kids already anyway. So beyond, will people now 33 plus be rushing to have more children? Probably not. So I would argue it's more of a symbolic gesture, one about sort of more conferring more rights on a population commensurate with the level of development in China. It's certainly a very different China today than 1980 when it was instituted. But I don't think we should get too excited, in real terms around this new policy announcement.
Martin, it's Gugu here. Then why make an announcement like this? Why does it matter?
Look, I think the Chinese state is balancing a number of things here. First, it's obviously the continuous economic reform drive, and China's in a society, a country, a government that always seems to, look, in most cases, most countries, most states only reform when there's a crisis. China's government has successfully, the last 3 decades, been able to reform itself despite a crisis, whether it's been, or prior to a crisis, whether it's the sort of Soviet disintegration in the early 90s, or whether it's the sort of Asian financial crisis, whether it's a Western financial crisis. China's become almost crisis-resistant by reforming. That's at the economic angle. I think politically, China needs to balance that sort of, with a still very authoritarian, very, very rigid sort of state structure and political structure. And thirdly, and more importantly, I think relating to this, is the government at the same time, the country, the state needs to come across as a softer institution, one that's more accommodating of people's rights that are more expected these days, of course, with the level of development and education, etc. So it's largely a non-announcement, I would say. I think it's symbolically incredibly important, but it's just about conferring rights that may already exist in reality, but making them into law for optics, perhaps, in terms of how the Chinese population engages and relates to its own state and government.
Martin, certainly not a non-announcement here in South Africa, and our media has got it all over the place, is the withdrawal of an honor for our Deputy President, Kgalema Motlanthe. Apparently got on an aeroplane, went off to China, and the speculation is that somebody very senior in this country told the Chinese don't give him the honor in the first place. Of course, it's been speculated that Zuma was the one behind it, but why would the Chinese do something unusual like this?
So I don't know exactly how that panned out. I will be seeing some Chinese friends here later, so in Abu Dhabi, so maybe we can discuss that. But I think, for me, I did hear during the recent visit of a deputy president. He's a deputy president, and from a protocol perspective, the Chinese government does have to host in a certain way. If there are, and I wasn't part of that visit, but if there were any issues between, word from Pretoria and, the processes of the our embassy in Beijing, as well as the expected protocol, the protocol that the Chinese lay on. If there's differences, it is rather embarrassing for the hosts as well as ourselves. So whatever we do, I mean, a relatively small issue like this, I'm not sure how it panned out. We do need to, as a country, whether it's the Chinese or anybody, project a far more coherent political sort of unit and an image when engaging with foreign countries, particularly those important as the Chinese are.
Yeah, the implications, as you say, are quite a lot more significant than whoever did, if they did make a call in the first place. Just to close off with the Global Agenda Councils of the World Economic Forum, where you are right now in Abu Dhabi, what's the major issue on the agenda?
The World Economic Forum, in typical sort of grand fashion, comes up with 10 key top trends for next year, and each one is thoroughly discussed and analyzed, and the forum seeks to to put solutions out there to these top sort of, trends ranked by global significance. And the first one is this rising societal tensions in Middle East and North Africa. This, after all, is in the UAE, and I think that's obviously a bit of a local sort of interpretation of what the major trend is globally. The challenge, secondly, is the widening income disparities, which we know all too well in our part of the world. And thirdly is persistent structural unemployment. And there's 6 or 7 more or so. So these are sort of major issues the next 3 days until Wednesday evening we'll be discussing. And there's a global agenda council groups, as you know, Alec, and everyone sorts to these themes direct and permeate through our conversations the next 3 days. There's about 1,000 people here, and the World Economic Forum ultimately, come Thursday, will be issuing sort of some communiques or results of how do we take this forward and how do we address these major global trends or challenges facing our global political economy next year.
And no doubt we'll be talking about all of those issues from Davos in January, the late part of January 2014, just around the corner. That was Martin Davies, Chief Executive of Frontier Advisory.